My youngest grandson is called Noah. He's great. He's 5, and he's got attitude. Oh, he's tremendous, you know. My daughter said that he was in the big bath, you know, a few weeks ago, and he's weeing in the bath. She says, "No, that's really dirty. You shouldn't wee in the bath." He gets up, he says, "All right, I'll go and sit in the other end." Oh, that's great, isn't it? It's tremendous. Anyway, I was there last year or so, and I'm sitting in the living room, and Laura's telling New, I don't know what it was, but he's telling me not to do something. You know, not to climb on something, not to lift something, not to have that, not that. And then she goes upstairs. So he looks. Right, let's just see. I don't think, as grandpa, I shouldn't intervene, really, you know. Anyway, whatever it was, I can't remember now, he got it, and it went badly wrong, and it went pear-shaped. And Laura come down, and she's not like me, she's more modern than me, so he didn't get a good flick round the ear. But what she said to him was, "Now, no," she said, "that was not good listening, was it?" And I thought, that's a really good thing to say. That was not good listening. I said, don't do that, but you didn't hear me. Or at least, there's no evidence that you did. It was not good listening. Are we good at listening? So many of the things that we do wrong in our lives, so many things we screw up, so many things that we are disobedient, or we just didn't take guidance, or whatever it was, God could say to us, as well as that was really bad, he could also say, that was not good listening, was it? We could do that as individuals, we could do it as a church. You could do it at the church in the United Kingdom. We have not done a lot of good listening. I think at a day like today, we don't just want more talking, but we want good listening. Master, speak thy servant here. What hast thou to say to me? What is God going to say? And this parable of the sower is about listening. It's about listening, because if we're going to be members of the kingdom, you've got different, it is in Matthew, Mark and Luke's gospel, this with different details in it. But this is a parable of the kingdom. The seed, he sows the seed of the kingdom, it says. This is the good news of Jesus. And you've got to listen to it, he says to the people. If you've got ears, hear. One of the things we miss in this parable is there's lots of good seed available. There is something worth listening to. If I'm in some cafe with sort of canned sort of, I don't know, radio, whatever it is, I don't listen to it because I know there's nothing to listen to. All right? But there is good stuff because God has got good things. You imagine what he was saying to those people early on, what the seed was like. You know, he said, peace I leave with you. What price peace? What price peace? Not as the world gives do I give to you. He says, the good news is of redemption and restoration. If you repent, you can be forgiven and you can have new life unto eternity. That is exceedingly good news. Or he would say, I want you to forgive one another as I have forgiven you. There will be tremendous healing in you forgiving one another, and so on. I have come that you should have life, and life in all its fullness. So the sower went forth to sow seed, and it wasn't like a modern sower with one of these machines that go do, 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 do. There is a plenitude of God's mercy. God has lots of good news for all of us. There's not any trouble with the good news. The trouble is with the soil and whether we hear the stuff or not. But be enthused that the seed is available. It lands on the ground, on the path, amongst the thistles, on the thorns. But at least it lands. Jesus makes the good news available to you this morning. It's not in a chained Bible written in Latin. And whether it's in the Bible, or whether it's in your prayer life, or it's in fellowship, or zapping you at a sunset, or through somebody else, or whatever it happens to be, it is available to be heard if you will hear. If we will hear, if I will hear. I'm paid to talk, which makes ministers bad at hearing. All right? Except what I'm saying. But, you know, we need to be good at hearing. So there's the seed that falls on the path, and the birds come and eat it up. This is definitely sort of switching off, so you don't hear it all. As I say, it goes in one ear and out the other. And if it's me, probably not hitting a lot between the two, you know. You think it may well not have been said. I go out running, or I have been running in the past, and you've got a lovely day. Perhaps you've got the waves on the shoreline. You've got the birds singing. It's a wonderful day. You see somebody running along as well with his headphones in. See, you feel like saying, "Hang on, there's something else going on out here." But I'm not hearing it because I'm listening to something else. It's a prioritization things. On the whole, we switch off from things we do not really think are important. You say, "Oh, I don't think that." No, it's not true. It's so easy to switch off. In the last 40 years or so that perhaps some of you have been coming to this church, you think how many sermons you've listened to. At least 1 in 10 of them would have been really good. What if you really listened to them? Think how much further on you'd have been, And the prayers, and 100% of the Bible readings are good. What about if I listen to all of those? But I'm switched off, I'm not hearing. It's not only I'm not prioritizing and thinking this is the most important to hear what God has got to say, I am preoccupied. Now, preoccupied means thinking about the future now. Now, it's good to plan things, I know, but preoccupation means that you are not present in this moment. That's very easy to do. Some of you may be there now. What am I doing this afternoon? What is going to happen later on? What am I doing this week? Is it going to get a lot hotter? It's so easy to be preoccupied because I'm a professional at preoccupation. You can do one thing and think about something else. But if God is speaking to you in the present moment and you're not there, you're somewhere else. I remember a few years ago I was doing a wedding and I got to the bit where the hands and rings and all that stuff. And I suddenly thought, I cannot remember doing the legal declarations. I don't know. And afterwards I thought, that's really stupid. You just keep on reading a book, don't you? Of course I did them. But when I did those legal declarations, I was on autopilot. And I was probably thinking about what I was going to say in the address to the happy couple later on. And so I was switched off. I didn't hear all that business about, has anybody got any objections? I forgot all about it. I was switched off. You can do that. It's not difficult to do. And sometimes it says in this gospel, it says that you don't understand it, you don't take it on. Why not? Because if you look in the gospels, lots of people didn't hear because they didn't want to hear, because they knew what they were going to hear and they didn't like it. There's none as deaf as that won't listen. So the Jewish authorities and the sort of holy people were saying, I don't want to hear that. We don't want to hear that. No. And you might hear, you know what he's going to say now? He's going to say, I need to forgive somebody. I don't want to hear that. He's going to say something about the gospel that I don't like, so I'll hear something else about it. I'll filter it out. And it's all gone. What a shame. As a church, as a denomination, we have filtered out things we didn't want to hear. Oh, I like that, but I don't like that. Did they say that? Did John Wesley say that? Yes. I never heard that. How many Charles Wesley hymns have we sung and filtered out the odd verse we don't like? As if it had never been. As if he'd never written a thing. We need to avoid just switching off. To really hear. Be present. Because Jesus is present. And if he wants to speak to us this morning, you need to be here as well. Rather than somewhere else mentally. And these birds... And we were doing some street theatre once. When we got to the birds, we went crow, crow, crow. Remember that? It's an embarrassing moment. But the birds, they're really important because they remind us that you can't put off hearing because it's always going to be going on anyway. And Jesus will go on saying it. And when you've got a better time, you'll hear it. The birds take it away. The opportunity is lost. Jesus may say something else, but he ain't going to say that now again. And that is very fatal. I might have told you before the story of when I worked for the Army. I did the basic Army parachute course. It was a 2-week course. The first week was theory. The second week was practice. The first week was Army methods of instruction, which is as interesting as watching paint dry. And it was kind of, this about the weather and about aeroplanes and about all the kit you put on and about packing parachutes. That's really boring. And jumping off a platform onto a mat in the hall, and hurting yourself. And you think, when is this going to be over? On the second Monday morning, the instructor says, gentlemen, today we are going out to the aircraft. And I thought, oh my gosh, I can't remember anything from the week before. I'm going to die. Why don't I flipping well listen? And I can't go to an army instructor and say, oh, sorry, instructor, but I wasn't listening last week. Do you need me to go over it again? Get up in the aircraft. Now, you want to listen because the opportunity might not come again. And it is a matter of life and death and salvation and active grace and eternity and building the kingdom or not building the kingdom. This is the opportunity. This is the day that the Lord has made. Not tomorrow, not yesterday, today. What have you got to say to me? Present tense. So that's the... Then what about the listening in relation to the shallow soil? Some of you are enthusiasts. And if you listen with enthusiasm to the gospel, either as it's preached or a great verse stands out, or we have a great song or a hymn, or somebody says something really good and there's a soundbite and a divine soundbite, you say, yes! This is great. I need more of this. And you believe it. It says, do I want peace? Yes, I want peace in my life. Do you want forgiveness? I want to be a forgiving person. Do you want life in all its... And so on. Yeah, I'm going to vote for that. I'm really going to go for this now. And we are moved and inspired. And it all sprouts up. We're hearing that new thing, you know. But it says you don't need roots down. Now the roots, you could say, we hear the goodness of the gospel, but we do not hear about the price of Christianity. But that makes price sound a bit negative. What we're really saying is we hear the blessings of Christianity, but we don't hear about how it works. You know? It's like going to the Chelsea Flower Show. Nobody is exhibiting roots. All right? But actually, without the roots, none of the stuff would be there. We know this. The Bible is full of this. Having your roots and foundations in love that is Christ. Being like a tree planted by the water that puts out its roots to the water. In other words, we need to be foundational in hearing. Whether it is, we need a good, solid Bible reading regime. You don't have to read 10 chapters a day, but we need a root in the foundation of God. We need roots in the way we pray, not just occasionally. We need roots in fellowship so other Christians can support us and feed in. We need roots in having space and time for blessing, for God to speak. Otherwise, when things go radically wrong, it is unsustainable. I say, what was all that about? How many Christians I've known have just go up and down like this all the time? We need to develop. In fact, what we need to develop is not only listening to what God has to say, but listening to how we have a regime for listening. You need to go on listening. That's what the roots do, isn't it? They give us a foundation. Because sometimes things go badly wrong in our lives. Situations change with health or finances or relationships or jobs or whatever it happens to be. And you think, how does this work now? How does all this love and forgiveness, how does that work? And you don't know how it works because there's no roots. You haven't dug deep and you say, oh, this is not, I haven't got time for that now. I've got to sort this out before I can get back to religion, you know. Not so. That is exactly when the roots need to really be firm. Or perhaps, as it says in Matthew, we have trouble precisely because we have listened to the word. And Christianity gets us into more trouble, if you like, and tribulations and persecutions. I've done this job for 40 plus years now. And there are lots of times when I have thought, I could do without this when it's stressful. It's not preaching to a big congregation, everybody's inspired. It's having a hard time. Then you need roots. Then you need to be able to pray and see where the Bible is. You don't float through on inspiration, you know. If we put down roots, we are putting down roots in hearing again and again and again. My late father, remember him once giving directions. You know, in the days when people asked for directions before all that sat-nav rubbish. And this person came and he asked for directions from my dad. And it was obviously complicated and quite a long way away. And my dad said something like this, and it always stuck in my mind. He said, you want to go to the end of the road and turn left, something like this. And then you go up there, and then the third on the right, follow it round to the traffic lights, go across the traffic lights, and you'll come into a small village. And then my dad said, when you get there, ask again. You're listening to this, now listen to that. Have your roots in listening for tomorrow and Tuesday and Wednesday. For us as a church, through harvest, through remembrance, through Christmas, have your roots. Then there's the thorns. You hear it, you want to do something new, you make a start, you say, I want something of this, Lord, I'm hearing what you're saying. There's a new message. Perhaps you're hearing a message like, Jesus really does love me, and that means I'm a valuable person. Doesn't mean I'm a perfect person, but means I'm a valuable person. But you're still listening to all the other things you always have been listening to, like people that run you down or your own low self-esteem. And so you listen to new things whilst trying to listen to all the old things at the same time. And there's a clash in all those weeds. And as we know in our gardens, the weeds are very much better at growing than the other stuff is. And so one overcomes the other. Now sometimes if we try and do new things in the Lord and new things sprout up and we got new relationships and new habits and new joys and new challenges, we try and do those and do everything else already. I've had that in churches where we've done lots of new things and nobody wanted to stop doing anything they were doing already. We don't need all of that. We're doing something else. No, we want to do this and all the stuff we've done before. And we're shattered, you know. More of this means less of the other. And sometimes that can be good stuff. It's not all bad stuff. Some good stuff needs to go for the better. When I was the Methodist minister in Barrow in Furness, the new thing about that was we were within 12 miles of Windermere, and in half an hour you could be in the heart of the Lake District. And you think, what an opportunity this is to be blessed by God and to get out there in the mountains and the thing. Well, we didn't. It's my fault. Because I'm thinking, unless I'm working at this church in Barrow 24/7, people are not going to think I'm doing a good job. I'm not committed. And so I'm there and there and there and doing all those committees and meetings and goodness knows what. Looking back now, the blessings that God had for me fresh, I've had from me and the family in the Lake District, they didn't happen about once in a blue moon. And it's terrible. You can't do new things and do all the old things. What does God want you to set down in your life that you could do new? What does he, for instance, say he wants you to serve him in a new way? You will have to stop doing some stuff. There will need to be some weeding. You cannot hear the word of generosity whilst also being mean. You cannot hear a word of peace if you insist on being stressed because that's your identity. It's an either-or thing. And we need, I think, to say it's this, got to go, and that's got to come. We rumble along quite happily as a church family, but we have some issues at the moment which amount to some extent, rise on quite a broad front, which says we as a church would like to move on and do new things, but there's also a sense we'd like it to be exactly the same as well. You can't do that. You can't grow all the stuff. So what about the good soil then? The thing about the good soil, it doesn't say much about the good soil at all. It just shows how good the seed was. Really. It is. It just receives the seed, hears the word and puts it into practice. It lets it take root in your life. It's no different, the seed over there. And you think, gosh, what a waste in all this other that I've not been listening. If only I had heard this before. When I've spoken to sometimes new Christians, sometimes often on Alpha away days, and people said to me, why didn't you tell me this before? And I could have said, why didn't you listen to this before? It was that good always. It's always been that good, really. God will bless you and God will bless the church. Is that a new idea? No, it's not. Is listening to it a new idea? Yes, it is. Will you let it take root within you? And if you are, then there's this lovely about 30-fold, 60-fold and 100-fold. Up in your game. If you are blessed, if you learn a bit more, listen a bit more, we could be more fruitful in our lives and our discipleship could grow. Christianity is not just a matter of productivity and success, but in the parable it is. And the farmer comes and says, that's brilliant, that's 100-fold. Wow. It's all the same seed. I hope that we've all survived the World Cup in one way or another. When they run out on the field, you can ask yourself, with our great new leader, our great manager of the England football team, have these guys been listening to what he said? Well, on the basis that he listened to something, yes, they have, because they've all turned up at the right day on the right time. Great. It's not only 9 of them there because the others got the day wrong. So they are listening basically, aren't they? But then, halfway through the second half, when they're 2 down and everybody's booing, have they got their roots and foundations in what was said? Do they, as they say these days, dig in? Or are they, we were very enthused, we're going to win the cup. Oh, no, we're not, sort of thing. Or after half time, do they plodding around very, very slowly because you realise they're a little bit overweight because they wanted to win the World Cup, but they also like burgers and beer as well. But also, some of them are, perhaps one of them is carrying injury because he also likes mountaineering and insists on doing that as well as playing football. Yeah? Now you want them to be here on the day, resilient, focused, and you don't want to win 1-0. You want to win 3-0 and not on penalties, How productive are you? How did you hear? How did you listen? As we come to communion this morning, we say, Lord, what have you got to say to us? Do I have the courage to hear what you've got to say through your word, through some song, through my prayer life, your spirit talking to me in the sunshine, whatever, that your spirit would speak, a whisper perhaps to me, and I should hear, and I should be present and listen and focused and go on listening and do some weeding so something new can grow in my life. And I should experience life and life in all its fullness. And this church can experience life and life in all its fullness. The band are going to come and play for us. Lord, you have my heart, and I will search for yours. Lord, you have my heart as a commitment thing. I give you my heart. I give you my attention. I give you my being. But then, and I will search for yours. What are you into? What are you doing? What is your agenda here for me? What would you grow in my life in this next week, in a good relationship, in a new hope, in a new guidance, in a new gesture, a new move? What would you grow in my life? Wow. Let's stand and sing this together.